tutors, mentors, and the city with your host.com.
The City Tutors presents
Tutors, mentors, and the city
with your host.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Kevin.com Brown, and welcome to Tutors, Mentors, and the City. And please help me in joining our guest for this episode, Miss Janet Zadina. Hey!
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. And I feel like I underrepresented your introduction because I said Miss, but it's actually Doctor, right?
Right.
Right. So do me a favor. Tell us about you. Who are you?
All right. For many years, I was a teacher of struggling learners. I taught high school reading and I taught high school English, but my students couldn't read. So I got a master's degree with a reading specialist trying to help them get better at reading. And then I found that students still couldn't read, and I started teaching at the community college level, and they were still struggling with reading. So one day, I saw an article in the paper that a scientist was doing brain scans of students with dyslexia. Because prior to this, the research on dyslexia, even though I studied intensively, it just didn't have any answers at that time. So when I saw that she was looking into the brains of students with reading difficulty, a new window, I said, I want to do that. And of course, from me going from being a teacher with a master's degree to doing brain scans of students with dyslexia was quite the journey. But it did happen. I went back to school and I set up a collaboration with Tulane Medical School. Now, the way that happened was very fateful because even though we never got information about Tulane's grand rounds, one day the scientist who did that research was going to be at Tulane. And I found out about it. And I just showed up with the medical students and just sat there and took notes and went up afterwards. And the local scientist, Ann Foundis, said, well, maybe her lab could do that here. And a few years later, as we worked toward that, I ended up getting a PhD in education in collaboration with a committee also from Tulane Medical School in the Department of Neurology, and I was doing brain scans on students with dyslexia.
Wow. Okay. That is an incredible story. Oh my goodness. That's a story of not recognizing limitations, right? It sounds like every time you saw something, you went and did research and then you did something. That's an incredible beginning of an interview.
Thank you, Kevin. And one thing I talk about I'll tell you the next turn things took. But I talked to students about resilience. So then things took another turn. Okay, if you can picture me in the College of Education and I'm saying I'm going to do brain research, well, you can imagine the reaction from the other students. So I had to be really good at what I did. And you can only imagine the lab when this older teacher, because I started at 52, comes in and she wants to do brain research, right? So I had to work extra hard to prove myself, right? And then I graduated. I got a postdoctoral fellowship there, and we were working on children who stutter, and Hurricane Katrina destroyed it.
Oh.
I had been a scientist for 2 years. Well, I had been a research assistant in the lab before that and doing all of my work. But I mean, my postdoctoral fellowship, and it was wiped out. I ended up in Florida. But my speaking career just started taking off. That was not anything I anticipated or set out to do. So I was already starting to go everywhere and be away from the lab a lot. So now I can help more people by speaking to thousands of teachers, tens of thousands, who then help students.
Uh-huh.
So, having gone through that natural disaster, I learned a lot about resilience.
Right. You're triggering a thought in my brain because I returned to school after a long time. And I was thinking that I'm coming back to help the students. But you seem like you really hit the target. The students may not be the real problem. It's the teachers that might really need the help, right? The help in identifying what the problem is, and the help in processing it, and the help in offering adequate solutions. You seem like you really stepped into something.
Well, Kevin, you make a great point because the teachers are working so hard, but it's the information that is available to them that makes such a big difference. And when I started talking to teachers about how the brain learns, there was a lot of baloney out there. Okay. They call this brain-based, and people were just kind of making up stuff, but they were so excited when the media started talking about the brain and this new information about learning started coming out. But a lot of misinformation got spread. So that is my goal as one of the very few, there might be 3 people who actually taught struggling learners and was in a lab and did brain research. So my goal is to give them credible information to help them work with the students.
Absolutely. And a couple of things I appreciate. You just said, you paused and you used the word baloney, right? And I appreciate how you did that, because we didn't decide what kind of podcast this is, whether another word could have been, placed in there. But you know what? When you said it, it felt so authentic. I'm hoping I can borrow that from you. And for the future of the show, whenever I want to say any of those other words that might replace baloney, I'm going to insert baloney, and I'm going to do it in honor of you.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, my frontal lobes that regulate my behavior are working well this morning. So we can be thankful for that.
Oh, yes, I can tell your frontal lobes are working well. Your backdrop, the color pattern you set up on your backdrop, the beautiful yellow flowers are popping, and there's a little red thing behind it that's popping. And then the intensity of the blue of your shells, your whole thing, the necklace complements everything. You're really popping through the screen today. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
well,
now,
what you're doing is so important. Okay. I wanted to be prepared and, fully available, because the work that City Tutors is doing, I've been following it for years, is so important.
Absolutely. And the one of the reasons I've been so fascinated by City Tutors is, if anybody, reads my resume, you see, I've worked with a lot of so-called stars, celebrities, the biggest stars, superstars on the planet. But I believe that folks like yourself, unsung heroes, right? People who aren't on the national spotlight, are really the people who move this engine along, right? On the front lines, helping so many people. They'll never put you on the cover of a magazine or have you on an MTV Music Awards. But this show, this has given me an opportunity to spotlight unsung heroes like yourself. So I really appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation with you.
Well, thank you for saying that. And, my heroes right now are the educators who have weathered this pandemic and still kept teaching. I don't think it's ever been more difficult to be an educator. And it's been very difficult to be a student. But I want to share a story with you that I don't usually tell. But after I had my master's degree, before I even dreamed of becoming a neuroscientist, I decided I wanted to learn about nutrition. So I just go enroll. I think I'm just going to go take nutrition and maybe get another master's in that just for fun. Oh, no, they said, you have to take chemistry. Okay, I enroll in that. Oh, no, you have to have algebra 1. Okay, so I just enroll in algebra 1. Oh my gosh. And then I got all the Algebra for Dummies books. I studied so hard, I flunked right out. So I went to the community college and I took the math test. Oops, I needed 3 semesters of developmental math. Well, okay. So I'm in the class with developmental ed students, okay, sitting there as a struggling math student. And the teacher doesn't know I have a master's degree. And I'm treated just like them, which I have to say is not always the best. We sometimes think that if a student is struggling with one thing, that they might not be very smart. But what happened was, as I learned later, I didn't have the neuronal network for math. I had not built the brain connections by having enough math to have that infrastructure, that neural network in my brain. So I had to back up and learn the math. Okay. But that experience was so eye-opening that I said, you know what? I'm going to start teaching at the community college. I need to get in there and, have this new enlightened view. So that's when I became the community college teacher. Then I saw the article and then I became a neuroscientist. So I've been a struggling learner in just that one regard.
Wow. So I have to ask you. So city tutors, volunteer tutoring, volunteer mentoring. When you ran into those obstacles, the way you tell the story, it was like you just followed your instincts. But my question is, when you ran into those obstacles that made you say, oh, I failed out of algebra. I have to go get, some sort of math foundation, and I have to go get did you have to go and seek advice? Did you have any mentors that guided you through this obstacle course?
Well, good question. When taking the math, I did go to the math lab. Okay. But, I got very discouraged at taking the math and struggling and spending the hours doing that. And I was talking to my dentist and he said, if you learn this algebra, okay, your brain will always be better for it. You will have more ways of thinking. And he was ahead of his time, because now the way I would say that is you'll have more neural connections, more pathways, more ways to learn other material. So any kind of learning is good for your brain. So that encouraged me to keep doing it. And then, I did take the chemistry and I did take one nutrition course, but that was all supposed to just be for fun.
Right.
But failure is a part of success. I mean, I have failed at so many things, but nothing, because I've done so much, but nothing was ever wasted. Whatever I learned from one thing has come around eventually to support me in some way.
Wow. If we unpack that, you said so many profound things in that when you say nothing was ever wasted. It reminded me of like Thanksgiving dinner, right? You have Thanksgiving dinner the first day and then the rest is leftovers. And then, for the next week or two, the next day you're having leftovers. Then you're having turkey soup and turkey stew and turkey casserole. And then, and our parents never wasted, right? They never wasted. Mom never wasted the food. And you did that. Sounds like you did that with knowledge. You just didn't waste it. And that's such it's subtle. It's subtle advice, but it's very valuable if you pick it up. That
Well,
is excellent.
thank you. I love to learn, and learning activates the reward pathway in the brain with dopamine and pleasure, not necessarily school, but real learning. So, one thing I would like schools to focus on is to try and keep that love of learning, that feel good aspect when you master something or learn something new. Draw their attention to that and build on that.
Okay. If you could expand, you said learning activates the dopamine and the whatever, and you said not necessarily school.
Right.
Expand on that for us, please.
Okay. Well, school has a lot of factors going on, and it's not always a pleasant experience. Learning is a pleasurable experience. We are built to learn. It's part of the survival pathway in the brain. Now, this survival pathway is also called the reward pathway, the motivation pathway, and the addiction pathway. It's the same pathway that is hijacked by drugs of abuse, for example. But in the classroom, we can activate this reward pathway. And that makes us want to do more of it, because dopamine is the want to do more drug in the brain. I want to do this again. It keeps us repeating a behavior. So if students focus on that feeling when they get it, we all know that aha moment, right? Focus on that. See that as progress. Ignore all the time that you don't get it. That's just part of the process. But aim for that wonderful feeling when you do figure it out.
Wow. Okay. Excellent response. Thank you. So let's back up for a second. Let's find out a little more about you. Where did this all start? Where are you from? Where were you born?
Oh, okay. I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana. My grandmother taught in a one-room schoolhouse. And so I think, she talked about that a lot. And I feel like I was a born teacher. When I would play with my dolls, I was either a teacher or a preacher. And I feel like now I've kind of combined both of those, because when I work with audiences, some have compared me to a preacher sometimes in that energy. Do you know what I mean? Like getting a message out and that feeling. So I guess I was born to do this, although I was extremely shy. So you would never believe I've spoken in audiences of thousands, because I wouldn't take a language in college because I was afraid to speak in class. So for students, I would say, don't judge what you think you can be by what you are now. There's a journey. You're not there yet. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense, but that's so difficult to do, right? Because the only barometer you have for what you can be is what you are now. Like, how can you make the leap? How possible is it to not judge what you can be by what you are now?
Well, let's just pick something simple. If your goal was to be able to lift a certain amount of weight, you wouldn't say, I can't have that as a goal because I can't do it now. You would go to the gym and start lifting smaller weights, and you would work your way up. You find the steps, and to get there, follow your passion. I mean, these sound like glib. I'm trying to figure it out along with you right here.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm gonna keep asking you questions, and hopefully they'll stumble you, trick you up, right? So now your grandmother taught in the one room school. Okay. So now you finished what do we call it? Elementary school, junior high
Right.
school, high school. Now it's time to go to college.
Okay.
What do you do? Where do you go?
Well, no one in my family had been to college yet. And I was, again, very shy. So my mother said, well, just go 1 year. Okay. And then I did have a mentor. My teacher, my English teacher, we were required in this high school for the last 20 minutes to be set aside for students to work on their homework. And he would sit with me and I would read the books of great literature and philosophy, and we would discuss them during those 20 minutes. So he was, encouraging me to go to college. So I graduated from college. I did my student teaching in the Job Corps, which in that Job Corps back then was they went there instead of going to prison. So I was about 21 and the students were like 18 to 21 and I taught them. That was my first teaching. Then I taught inner city learners, and then I moved to New Orleans. And I got my master's in reading and taught here. Then I started working part-time for a company that did reading programs after school at schools. And then here's where I took another turn. So then they wanted to put me in charge of that, which became more of a business job. And then I ended up going into the business world. Was the big thing for women in the 80s. Until one day I realized that my heart was not involved. Teaching activates your heart, and I went back to teaching.
Wow.
I'm not saying business is wrong. I'm saying for me, it was just all up here and nothing here in my heart.
Right. Okay. And did you say what school you went to? What college you went to?
Oh, Indiana University, Bloomington.
Okay. All right. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, and then I went to University of New Orleans, which was part of the LSU system at that time.
Yeah. So how far apart is Indiana from New Orleans? Is that a long commute?
About 17 hours driving fast.
Yeah. So what was it like for a little girl from Indiana to go to New Orleans?
Oh, Kevin, I didn't just go to New Orleans. I lived in the French Quarter. Okay.
No.
So here's this shy school teacher who went to New Orleans on spring break with another teacher. And when I saw the French Quarter, I said, I'm going to live here. You can't live in the French. See, don't ever tell me I can't do something. That's the thing, because then I will have to do it. So you can't live in the French Quarter. Well, I met this girl and she needed a roommate. So I was going to maybe just go for the summer, but I took graduate courses at the university toward my master's. And then I got a job teaching here and I stayed here.
Wow. Okay. So you're in New Orleans now.
Yes. Well, after Hurricane Katrina, I lived in Florida for 12 years.
Okay. Well, I've been to New Orleans a couple of times. And I don't know if I've been through during the Mardi Gras, but that Bourbon Street is an adventure. Doesn't matter what time of year you go. That
Exactly.
Bourbon Street ain't no joke.
I'm not really a Bourbon Street type girl.
That surprises me. I'll tell you right now. All right. So you go from New Orleans to Florida.
Well, yes, because you see, when Hurricane Katrina hit, we couldn't come back. The city was just destroyed.
Yeah.
And so my husband was at VA hospital and he had to report to a VA hospital anywhere but here. And I had my mother with dementia with me and I had to get a home for her. So I ended up going to Tampa Bay and to find a rented place, furnished. I went out toward the beach and got a rental place. After a year, he came back, but it was still really bad here, really upsetting, and people were still gone. And so I started working with a researcher at the VA hospital in Tampa and the university there, looking at non-pharmacological interventions for post-traumatic stress disorder for the veterans. So for several years, I was researching that. And that took my life in another turn, because right before Katrina, I was going over to VA working for free. Don't tell my boss this. Okay, I was going over from Tulane to the VA to work for free on a project with veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, because I was interested in that. So then I started working on that in Florida. And now my biggest talk is anxiety, stress, and trauma and learning. I certainly have lots of experience with that in many ways. And then I would go around the world after natural disaster for free on my own dollar to help them understand that they didn't get brain damage. That's what people thought. They thought they had brain damage from the trauma, and help people understand what was happening. Then there got to be too many disasters. In 2019, I couldn't keep up. And then the pandemic. So.
Right. Okay. You mentioned your mother and dementia. Dementia runs in my family. My father had it. My aunt had it. I feel it coming. I tease my daughters because I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm an actor, and I seem to be in control of my faculties. But I can tell it's not as sharp as, but I guess that's part of age. So I joke with my daughters saying, y'all have to get ready now to start taking care of me. So I'm going to stop taking care of y'all early, right? So y'all could get prepared, get practice on taking care of me, because I feel the early onset dementia. Now, I bring this up, I joke about it, but it's a serious issue. But I bring this up because of the initial part of our conversation. You were talking about the brain research. Have you ever thought about researching that, since it's so close to home for you and for me?
Every morning with my coffee, I read lots of research feeds, and any article that interests me, I click on. So I see things from every field. I get all kinds of research feeds because I love to learn. And so if there is anything on dementia, I do look at it. And of course, I have the same concern, and it's a big concern. But what's good for your heart is good for your brain. So two things. One, the things you can do now that might prevent it. Just because you have a gene for something doesn't mean the gene will get turned on. Okay? So you don't necessarily have to get that. And the kinds of things, by keeping your mind sharp, not by doing the crossword puzzles, that kind of thing, by learning new things, learning different things, okay? You keep your brain sharp, keep the oxygen flow, with exercise and so forth. And then there's this diet called MIND, M-I-N-D. You can Google that. And that's supposed to prevent or delay. But the second thing I want to tell you is there's new research every day. So I just figure if I do, hopefully by then, there'll be something that can be done. So don't worry you. But I want to say one other thing about students may feel like they got brain damage, that they can't think right. People feel like they're getting Alzheimer's, and that's from stress.
That's me.
That's from stress. Trouble focusing, brain fog, okay? Maybe getting lost, or trouble even remembering things, trouble organizing. That can be because of a state of stress. So if you do a few stress reduction activities, like I teach audiences for students and teachers, that can help you get back online. Your frontal lobes might be a little offline when the emotional center is activated. Okay, it inhibits the frontal lobe, higher order thinking. So you might need to do something to reduce the stress, and you'll see that you're thinking better. Also, Kevin, I bet you work really hard and you do a lot, and your frontal lobes might be tired, exhausted, right?
They might be. Yeah.
Do you ever rest your frontal lobes? Like, do things that are not cognitive per se. So it might be more sensory things like listening to music or walking in nature, meditation, yoga.
I don't.
You ever turn it off, Kevin?
I don't do any of those things.
I know you never.
I don't.
You're always on, always thinking, right?
I don't listen to music. I only listen to sports talk radio. I don't meditate, and I get these signals from YouTube, transcendental meditation, and whatever. So I think I take those as signals or reminders or stimulus to try it, and I never try it. I find myself doing multiple things at a time. So I won't even watch a TV show or a movie without, during the movie, I play chess online and I check my emails and I'll send a text all at the same time. I won't focus on any one thing. So what lobes did you say? My frontal lobes?
Your frontal lobes are exhausted. And multitasking is really not good. And all the things that you named don't reduce stress. If you just played chess without doing anything else, that would reduce stress. Crafts and sports, doing the sports.
Well, you gave me something else I'm going to use. So you know how I'm going to use baloney instead of any of the other 4-letter words that I could use? Wait till I talk to my daughters again. I'm going to keep inserting, my frontal lobes are being exhausted. So I really can't send you money to pay your car note. You have to find my frontal lobes.
All right. And then tell them when they upset you, they're activating your amygdala.
My amygdala. Oh, wait a minute. Let me write that down. You're activating.
You're activating my amygdala. You're stressing me out.
Thank you. I'm writing this down. Amygdala. Yes.
Amygdala.
Well, I'm going to spell it right, but I'm going to say it wrong. I promise you. Okay, so thank you for the diagnosis and giving me dialogue I can use to annoy my daughters. I love doing that. But okay, so now you go to Tampa, stay there for 12 years, then you come back. You strike me as the type of person in New York in the subway systems we have. If you see something, say something, right? You strike me as the type, you won't just say something, you do something.
Yeah.
You come to New Orleans, you see something, and then you do what?
Well, my condo flooded in a hurricane in Florida. And that's when I moved back here. And so I was still doing my speaking career from here. And then the pandemic hit just a couple years later. I've been doing this speaking career on Zoom, okay? I speak to educators about their own stress, to educators about helping students with stress, and my newest talk is about synchronizing brain waves and engaging the heart so that we get the whole thing involved, not just the frontal lobes.
Synchronizing brain waves and engaging the heart. Now, those both sound like things that are out of our control. How do we synchronize brain waves?
All right, then. One of the scientists, I was supposed to present with him in Slovenia, and then the pandemic hit. But Ida Davidesco, he took brainwave machines, EEG machines, into the classroom. And he put them on the students' heads and the teachers' heads and monitored their brain waves. And there are a few things that would cause them to synchronize. And to synchronize to the brainwave frequency best for learning. But one of those things is joint attention. So if you and I are both paying attention to the same thing right now, our brainwaves are synchronizing.
Okay, that makes sense. You explain it so well.
Thanks.
I'm going to use that from when I talk to my daughters too. Listen, we're going to have to synchronize our brain waves right now.
Right?
Before you aggravate my amygdala.
That's right. Exactly. Now, you want to know something else with your daughters?
What's that?
So let's say that your daughter is upset about something and
Always.
she's standing closer to you than 5 feet. You tell her, get back, 5 feet away from me, because you could be catching something from someone 5 feet or less to you. And you know what you could be catching?
What's that?
Not COVID. Well, maybe that, but heart rhythm, heart coherence or incoherence. And when the heart field extends 5 feet from us and can actually physiologically affect another person. Haven't you ever sat next to someone and inside they are all agitated, but you're feeling it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Emotions are contagious. Visible emotions are contagious, but it turns out invisible ones are too, if it's a strong emotion. And when a student is in an incoherent heart rhythm, you've seen the EKGs, and it goes up and down, right? But it can be up and down very jagged, or it can be kind of undulating. So incoherent, when you're upset, stressed out, again, it's not good for performance. But a coherent heart rhythm is, test scores go up. When you get students into a coherent heart rhythm, test scores go up on standardized tests they've used.
Wow. But that heart stuff, that's so fascinating. I've never heard anything like that before.
Right. And, we have to bring heart back into the classroom. There's research that shows not only greater well-being, but greater academic performance. And there are very simple ways that we can teach students to do that. And one of the things that, I would say with teachers is to form relationships with the student. I don't mean being the most popular teacher or best friend or loosey-goosey. I mean, just how are you doing today? You doing okay? Everything okay? Just those simple kinds of things. When students are connected with the teacher or with each other, their achievement rises.
I'm going to borrow that too. You're dropping so many jewels on me today. I don't know if people who are viewing it, I'm sure they're going to get something out of it. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm getting so much out of talking to you. I always get fascinated by how high achievers make time for their personal lives, right? And achieve so highly. That strategy always fascinates me, because a lot of people cannot do it. So kudos to you.
Well, I wouldn't say I have. I'm not a highly social person. I'm not even moderately social.
That's impossible. I don't believe that for 1 second. I believe everything you said up until right there.
Well, I have my moments. Yeah.
Well, listen, while we're talking, I can tell, like from the beginning of the conversation, we triggered some things where I saw your eyes light up, right? I saw your eyes light up, and this could be because you're just such a brilliant speaker, experienced speaker, or it could be that we hit topics that you are obviously passionate about. So when you say to me right now, after we talk for about 45 minutes, that you are not a social person, I can't believe it. I just don't believe you, doctor. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess I'm not a party person. Maybe that's what I'm
But
not.
put you in front of a crowd and
Oh, yeah.
pull out the amygdala, and now
I am an audience person. The bigger the audience, the better. No,
is
I
that right?
do love to connect. I feel like I'm giving them energy, lots of energy. But when I walk away, I am full of energy. I might walk in tired from the travel, but I, give it the energy, but they give me so much energy. So I'm definitely an audience person. I think this is my calling.
So you went through, you come back to the town that you love, the state that you love, and you are doing your brain research and you're doing all these wonderful things. Your story is amazing. Your knowledge is amazing. I feel so inspired just having the opportunity to speak to you. And thank you. Thank you for that. My question to you is, what did we leave out?
I think we left out this message that when you go through something, like let's say Hurricane Katrina, I got together with some people for lunch. The first time I had lunch with them recently, my Tai Chi class, we went to lunch, the class I attend. And sooner or later, the topic of the hurricane comes up, even though it's been almost 20 years. What happened to you? It was like apocalyptic. All right. But we survived. Okay. People survive the worst days of their life and go on. So sometimes, we have to take the long view and know that, it took years to get to that place for people and not everybody survived. But, there's a high suicide rate 2 years after a natural disaster because people think it's going to go back to normal and it doesn't. And so the pandemic has changed a lot of things, but we survived it and we are surviving it. So the message is you will survive this or whatever you're going through, as I've learned by working with people from disaster all over the country.
Okay, that is great. That is great. You mentioned Tai Chi. How long ago did you take that up?
Years and years ago.
Okay.
But, when someone is extremely stressed or they're very A personality like you, very active, you might find it really hard to sit and meditate. And that was me after the storm. But I studied with Buddy Helm, the drummer. I don't know if you know him, but meditative drumming. He would come to Florida sometimes. So I took up meditative drumming. And then I got back to Tai Chi. I accidentally took yoga. I hired a personal trainer. And then after a while, she told me, we're doing yoga, right? I didn't know that's what it was. And, or I wouldn't have done it, but it worked out great. I'm going to yoga today.
Okay.
But now I do cardio drumming. You might look into that. You just beat all your tension out and on an exercise ball with drumsticks to music. It is fun and it gets rid of your stress and it's very cardio.
Really?
Google.
That sounds like an exciting combination of things to do. I've never heard of it before, so I will definitely look into it. Now, that sound like a class we could teach, right? Can you just go to a town? Can you just go to a school and say, I'm going to start teaching a cardio drumming class? Or is there some training someone needs for that?
There would be some training because you have a routine. You follow the teacher, you do a variety of movements. But in my talks that I give, I do teach them Tai Chi. We do 2 or 3 minutes of that. I teach them a little Qigong. I teach them a little meditative drumming. Yes.
Wow. Okay. I've learned so much from you in this conversation. I feel inspired by you. I definitely feel energized by you and inspired by you. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you so much. You will have no idea how much of what you shared with us today that I'm going to use, and I'm going to integrate into my dialogue. And you dropped so many jewels, and I appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much. And look, if you come to New Orleans, I will break my no Bourbon Street rule, and I will take you out and around. Okay. So you be sure and let me know.
I appreciate. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'll just show you around.
I appreciate the offer. I feel like I'm still afraid to travel, right? I still, deep down in the back of my brain, it's not like a upfront fear, but I feel like in the back of my brain, I'm still a little timid about it.
I understand perfectly. And I did my first 2 in-persons because it was a big conference in California. And I wore a mask everywhere except when I was speaking. And I got a notice on my phone I had been exposed to COVID. They have that app, but I didn't get it. And then the Sorbonne. I was invited to speak at the Sorbonne in Paris. So I wasn't going to turn that down. And I didn't get it. But I take precautions. But I miss the audiences.
Yes.
I miss seeing the teachers. Zoom just doesn't cut it.
Right. It sure doesn't. And it saved us. Zoom saved us. The technology saved us for quite a long time. It came at the perfect time.
It sure did.
Because I had never heard of Zoom prior to the pandemic. I didn't even know it existed.
Me too.
Yeah. So, but it absolutely saved us. It was an amazingly useful tool. But yeah, now it's still useful. It's still useful, but there's nothing like being in the same place and being there with other human beings. Nothing like that.
So do you think you'll do some in-person comedy soon?
Yeah, I vowed that this year, 2023, I'm going to start hitting the clubs again. I'm going to start going out on the road. Now I'm a master's candidate. I'm still in school.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, I'm in my second semester of a 30 credit program. So I'm probably, by the end of the semester, I'll be 15 credits in. So I'll be halfway through by June.
Wow.
I made a commitment that I'm going to try to hit comedy clubs at least 3 nights a week. When I was a younger comic on the grind, I'm in the comedy club 6-7 nights a week, right? I'm doing 3 shows a night, 6 shows a night, doing shows wherever I could get them. But now, what I learned from Tracy Morgan, I was on 30 Rock with Tracy Morgan for so long, but Tracy Morgan got to a point where you do your comedy in your conversations, right? You insert a joke, and you get it any way you can. An audience of 1,000 or an audience of 1. We'll take it wherever we can get it. So that's where I've been for the last couple of years. But yeah, I decided I'm going to start, because the one thing I realized, when you do go to school, at a certain point you graduate, right? At a certain point you graduate, and then all it is you with all this education. Now, what are you going to do with it? Right? And you have to do something.
What are you going to do?
Well, I plan on going for my PhD.
Yes.
I definitely plan on going for my PhD. The only thing that I have not figured out, well, it might not be the only thing, but the biggest thing is education now. You mentioned you did research. It's research now. I don't know. I haven't processed, or I can't process how when we're coming up from elementary school to high school, you're teaching us something. We're demonstrating that we learned it, and then you grade us on it. I don't understand how you can give somebody something for research. You're not teaching them anything, but you're asking them to participate in something. And then by the time they finish participating, okay, now you're a PhD. I don't understand that.
Getting my PhD was the happiest time of my life, I think. It was so wonderful. I'm glad I waited till I was older. It was so revitalizing. You do take courses, but you take courses where you do learn things, okay? The research is just, one aspect of it is the culmination. But here's the thing why getting a PhD is easier and more fun than getting a master's, because you are in control to a great degree in the PhD program. So when we are learning something, I related everything to my interest in the brain. So if I wrote a paper in that class, it was some way to tie it into my interest. So you couldn't always do that, okay? But you're not memorizing anymore. That's what I'm not good at. And that's the hard part. And it's kind of not really important. But anyway, but what you're doing is you're following your passion, whatever your little niche is that you want to end up doing the research paper on, okay? So it's exciting. And your grade isn't the way they grade in other programs. There's not tests where you memorize or anything. It's like you might read 10 books and you just write a reflection on each book. 10 books in a class, in a semester, and you write a reflection and you relate it to yourself and things that it's just different.
Right.
Learning almost for the love of learning. I don't think we ever took a test that I can recall.
Okay. Well, thank you for that translation. I appreciate it. But that's definitely what I plan to do. I plan on I'm looking for a PhD program that fits with my location or whatever. But yeah, that's definitely I'm locked in. I'm doing that.
Oh,
So,
that's wonderful.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. But that being said, getting the opportunity to speak to you today was I feel rewarded. I feel like I'm a better human being than I was an hour ago.
Oh, thank you. Well, I was really looking forward to this, and I so enjoyed talking with you. I love your excitement and enthusiasm and personality. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Maybe I need my brain scan. I don't know where this excitement comes from. Like, people tell me I'm always on 9 or 10, right? But something happened to me, and it may be as I'm speaking, it may be because I'm doing things I love to do, because I'm excited about things that I never used to be excited about, right? So talking to you excited me. Seeing the color scheme of your backdrop. You need to watch the video. I don't know if you did that by design, but your backdrop is popping. Your backdrop is strong.
Watch this, Kevin. Watch this. I have a halo.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
So
that was great.
it was kind of designed for Zoom backgrounds. I did. Yeah.
No, but that was great. That's great. I love it. But thank you so much. Thank you so much, Janet. I appreciate your time. It was a great conversation, and I hope we could do it again another time.
I hope so, Kevin. Take care. Stay well.
You too.